Good morning. This is Ron. It is Wednesday, February the 7th. Welcome to Story Time. And today is a Story Time Extra. So what I wanted to talk about today was keeping it in-house and basically how to deal with issues, complaints that you have at in the workplace. And when I was in the United States Air Force, and I was stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and this is back in 1984, going back quite a while. And when I was and I was a two-striper at the time, like fresh out of tech school, and I arrived at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and I worked in in the Air Division. It was called the First Strategic Aerospace Division, and the Aerospace Division was headed up by a two-star general. He was the commander. The vice commander was a full colonel. The chief of staff was also a full colonel, and then the chief of staff was the supervisor of what is referred to as deputates, and the deputates are headed up by deputy chiefs of staff. The deputate that I was in was called test and evaluation, and our job was to test and evaluate missiles, Peacekeeper missiles, and Minuteman missiles. And so when I was working there and I was brand new, I got to sit down with the head of the deputate, a lieutenant colonel by the name of Trull, Colonel Trull. And he was talking to me and he said, Airman Hardgrove, if you ever have a problem in this deputate, you ever have a problem with anybody or anything, and you can't get any other solution, you can't get your supervisor to help you, bring it to me. And the phrase that he used was keep it in-house. Keep it in-house, and you bring it to me, and I guarantee I will solve the problem. Okay? He wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to take it to his supervisor upstairs. We were in a two-story building, and most of the deputate was down on the first floor, and then up on the second floor were the command offices, the general's office, and the vice commander, and the chief of staff were up there. So he wanted to make sure that we kept things in-house. And part of it was because the deputate had the best reputation of any place to work in the United States Air Force. It was incredible, in part because it's the only place that did what it did. It was the only place that tested and evaluated missiles. So they had a sterling reputation, and so he wanted to make sure it stays that way. He doesn't want to be getting, as he was putting it, any phone calls from upstairs and having them ask awkward questions. His second commandment was always keep your boss informed. Just because I don't want to, again, have to go upstairs and get called into the chief of staff's office and ask questions I don't have answers to. What's going on? How come this? Whatever. So make sure you keep your boss informed and keep the matters in-house, and everything will go good. And this worked. And it worked because he was true to his word. He actually, if you had a problem you couldn't get solved anywhere else, you brought it to Colonel Trull, he would get it solved, no matter what it was. No matter how trivial it may have seemed or whatever, he would get it fixed. So there was a sort of a quid pro quo there. You keep the matter in-house, I'll solve your problems, and it worked. However, anywhere else that I'd gone in the Air Force, anywhere I've worked outside the Air Force, the opposite is true. The best thing to do is to go out of house. Don't keep the matter in house, because by and large, the people in the other places that I've worked have no interest in solving problems. What they're interested in is shutting you up and throttling your complaint. And very often you end up getting punished along the way. And a classic example, a classic example of that was when I worked for a utility, Southern California Edison. I worked for them, and I had some problems I brought to human resources, and instead of human resources acting as, having somewhat of a sympathetic disposition and trying to get to know or understand my problem, they immediately took an adversarial position, and started interrogating me about the issue of the problem. And so I learned rather quickly that if I'm going to get my complaints heard and validated, I can't do it in house. I can't do it at Edison in house. There came a point at Southern California Edison where, in the place I was working, it was a division. It was called electric transportation, and the purpose of the division was testing and evaluating uh, electric vehicles. And so there was subdivisions within this division, about four of them, and they were headed up by people with master's degrees and PhDs. The person that was heading the division was had left when I arrived, and so that position was vacant, and so they were um, looking for people to fill that position. They'd apply and fill out the position. One of the people that went ahead and applied was my supervisor, a man by the name of Ernie Morales, and he was a man with a master's degree in engineering. He had had approximately 20 years experience at Southern California Edison and approximately 5 years experience in the division. So he and several other candidates vied for the position. And then in the end, they ended up giving it to a man, and the hiring supervisor was a white female. And they ended up giving it to a white guy with a high school diploma. And not only was he a white man with a high school diploma, he was a white man from New Zealand with a high school diploma. So they were going to discriminate, and didn't even have the guts to discriminate in favor of an American white guy. They went the New Zealand route. So, anyways, I was outraged by it, and I agitated with inside the division, which got me nowhere. Just got me a sit down with the division head, who basically verbally scolded me. And so I went on a letter writing campaign, and I went ahead and wrote letters to everybody I could think of, to news departments, television news departments, newspapers. I sent to attorneys general. I sent to district attorneys. I sent a letter to the Public Utilities Commission. Anybody and everybody I could think of that would be interested in this, and I got nowhere. And I believe that in part the reason I got nowhere was because I had no standing, what's called in court standing. In other words, I'm not the aggrieved party. My supervisor was the aggrieved party. And now, actually, technically speaking, I was an aggrieved party in that I could make the argument, or could have made the argument, that the denial of my supervisor's denying his application for promotion, basically, uh, amounted to creating a hostile and intimidating, and denying the application on the basis of race created a hostile and intimidating work environment. Unfortunately, I don't think I put it that way. I was just putting it basically that, basically my supervisor got screwed, and this is against the law, and somebody needs to do something about it. And nothing was done, and eventually, my employment at Southern California Edison was terminated. And so there was an ensuing lawsuit which I ended up losing. But the point that I'm trying to get to here is that keeping them in that particular case, keeping the matter in house wasn't going to do any good, because there's just too many people that would have had plenty of reason to see the complaint throttled. Number one, the lady that was the hiring supervisor, who ended up getting promoted, by the way. And so I'm sure she would have done what she could to throttle the complaint, and I'm sure all of her friends there at Southern California Edison probably would have helped her to do exactly that. So the only thing that I should have done, that I've recognized recently, that would have really, where I could have been more effective in agitating for um, basically what I was looking for was the dismissal of the individual that was whose name was Ed, who the white guy with the high school diploma, his dismissal and the promotion of my supervisor, the rightful promotion of my supervisor. And so that's what I was looking for here and didn't get it. And so what would have the way it would have the way I handled it was almost, even though I went outside, out of house, so to speak, outside of Southern California Edison, I did it in a way that didn't draw enough attention. What I needed to do was find a way to draw a lot of attention and do so dramatically. I don't know, maybe strap myself to a flagpole or something like that, so that, and then do something where I'm going to get maybe the police involved and the news media. So they have to show up. I can present them with my case, say this is why I'm doing it because my supervisor got screwed out of his promotion, et cetera, et cetera. And at least then I have the chance that this matter would be made public because in a manner of speaking, I failed in 2 counts. I didn't get Ed terminated. I didn't get Ernie promoted, and then this on the second count, I didn't end up making this public. So nobody ended up knowing about what it is that Southern California Edison was up to at the time. So, and it was kind of a tough thing to do for me because this was a very good job. It was the best paying job I had ever had in my life. It was, you had an incredible amount of benefits, and all of the benefits were paid for by the company. It wasn't a split thing. It wasn't where they pay half, you pay half. Nope. Southern California Edison paid the entire way on all of your benefits. It was a very rich company and overpaid its employees, and that's a good reason why they have so much loyalty. But um, so it was, like I said, it was tough to do, and I went ahead and did this because I felt that um, I don't want to be one of those people that finds, you're working you hear people that complain constantly about where they work, and this sucks, and that sucks, and they do this, and they screw these people, but they won't do anything about it. They won't stand up and try to get something done about it. And I decided I didn't want to be one of those people. If I'd kept my mouth shut, I could be there still working there today, probably getting ready to retire, having a fabulous retirement and benefits and all that. But it just seemed to me it's not worth it. Why do I want to work for what is, in essence, when you get right down to it, even with all the benefits, all the pay, a crappy company, a really crappy fucking company? Would I be able to look myself in the mirror in retirement? I don't think so. So, again, to sum up, it's generally best you have problems at work, unless they're very minor issues that you're confident that you can get addressed and taken seriously. Then I would suggest that you take the matter out of house, take it outside the company, find an IG, find some type of regulatory body, and go to them with it. The other thing I wanted to suggest also is that one of the best tools, and a lot of this was brought up by the idea of what has happened with the Me Too movement and women being sexually harassed on the job and their reluctance to come forward. One of the other things might want to remember to do is, in any work situation, is keep a work diary. I was told that by a lawyer. He said, well, as a matter of fact, it was with Edison. When I went to, I'd gotten suspended. I went to a lawyer and I said, hey, what's the deal? And so he told me, keep your nose clean, do a good job, and keep a work diary. And because that's like having a witness. Because one of the things also I learned when I sued Edison was that nobody was going to, even though a lot of these people were friendly to me and I was friendly to them and we got along good, but when it comes right down to it, you get into a lawsuit situation, all of a sudden they don't know me anymore, and they're not going to help me. They're not going to provide any sympathetic witness statements, and as a matter of fact, in one particular case, they will flat out lie about events in order to make sure that the company is exonerated. So, if you keep a work diary and it as detailed as you can possibly make it, and preferably from the time you start there until the time you leave every day. It may seem like a pain in the ass, but it is worth it in the end. If you do end up having to sue, like I said, you're not going to be able to count on any of your coworkers standing up with you because, of course, they're afraid of getting fired and whatnot. So if you have a work diary, that's your witness right there. So that's the best way to handle it. And like I said, so if you're going, unless it's something trivial, I recommend you take the matter out of house. I had a situation also in another place where I worked, and instead of taking the matter in house, there's an IG department, an inspector general department that oversaw this particular business, and I submitted a complaint to them, and it worked out very well. It was very professional. They were quick to respond. I got to meet with, they were law enforcement officers. They had badges and the whole bit. And they did an investigation, they made recommendations and whatnot. And, they didn't use my name. So I was kept out of it, so to speak. So that's the best way to go. And unless you have something that is very trivial or very minor in nature that you want to get fixed. So, tomorrow is going to be Thursday, and I will be again doing some reading. We will see from what it is that I will be reading. Also, in the near future, I'm going to be expanding my broadcasts and basically combining the Storytime Extra with my reading episodes. So I'll have, like 10, 15 minutes of reading, then there'll be a short break, and then I'll go ahead and do my little extra, and we'll go at it that way. And eventually, I'd like to expand the broadcast to be half an hour, maybe even an hour long every day. So, thank you very much for listening, and see you tomorrow.